Hi everyone, in this video I'm building this giant case with three 200mm fans in the front. Initially I wanted to make the front from hardwood, but I thought the sides would be too thin and they might break while sanding them. You can avoid that by making the case wider, but I wanted to save desk space, so I ended up 3D printing the front. The front is 77 centimeters high, so I had to split it into 3 pieces. If you print large pieces that have to fit together perfectly like a flat surface, it's a good idea to add some reference points so you can line up the pieces when gluing. I used epoxy to glue the parts. CA glue might also work, but I don't have activator and I didn't want the glue to run since the glue surface was vertical on the bench. To get rid of the seams, I make a small groove with a soldering iron and then I filled it by melting PLA before filling it with car body filler. I used a 2-part one, which worked, but it was a pain to get the ratio right since it was 50 parts filler to 1 part thicknesser and I made way too much, so it started to set before I could apply it. Rather get the one that doesn't need mixing. Like all 3D printing projects, there is a tremendous amount of sanding involved. I used 12mm plywood for the side that will be facing the wall, and for the visible side I went with a recessed cabinet style panel, also 12mm thick. You will see me using all different types of wood in some of the panels since I tried to use the existing pieces I had lying around the garage. I thought I was saving time by using the table saw to make the rabbet for the side panels, but I didn't have a flat tooth blade and the ridges it left was way bigger than I thought it would be. It would have been cleaner and maybe even faster if I used the router. Since the front was 3D printed, I thought it would look strange if the rest was hardwood, so I decided to paint the whole case, and because it is so big, I thought I would spray it with a HVLP spray gun, except for the primer, which was still a rattle can. It was my first time using a spray gun and compressor. Up till now I only used an airbrush, and I messed it up so many times I lost count. Firstly, I didn't practice enough on a test piece because I was in a hurry. I also tried to use hobby craft paint since it was cheap, but I had it thinned way too much for use with an airbrush. It meant the layers I applied didn't cover the surface properly, so I was spraying thicker layers which led to the paint running and forming teardrops. I eventually realized ordinary house paint worked really well. It only cost a little bit more than the hobby craft paint, but you need fewer layers. In my case, printing the plywood and MDF, I only needed primer and 2 layers, while I put on countless layers for the front using the hobby paint. The paint covered the plywood well, except for the sides, which I filled with general purpose filler and then sanded them, but that didn't work great. You can still see the plywood lines. For the top coat I used matte floor polish. It kind of worked, but it was very thin and ran a lot, and I once again put on too much in a single layer and it pulled up and made some orange peel. Increasing the pressure and reducing the amount of fluid seemed to help. Last time I used a heat gun to try and flatten the fan mesh, but it melted the mesh. So this time I tried a hairdryer, but it is still too hot and still melted the fan mesh. So you can see some uneven parts from the front. I use UV epoxy to glue the fan mesh since CA glue will run too much unless you use activator. I was going to use this case as my daily driver, but after I messed up the paint on the front so much, I decided to treat this build as an experiment and see how it turns out first. So to speed things up, I'm going to take a few shortcuts like screwing parts directly into the wood instead of using threaded inserts until I can decide if I want to actually keep this case or not. I had to cut off a bit of the fan mesh cover because it didn't fit, and this will come back to bite me later. I specifically didn't glue the side panel facing the wall to the case so I could remove it to mark the holes for the screws on the opening side panel. It had to line up with the holes in the brackets. I used rivet nuts to save time, but it's completely optional. was going to mount the GPU vertically so that the fans would push the cool air directly onto the GPU, but the cables didn't reach, so I ended up mounting it horizontally. I 3D printed a small cover for the HDMI cable to run straight from the GPU to the monitor. I'm not a smart man, and I forgot that if one side of the fan mesh cover was too big, the other side would be as well. So I had to cut away part of the fan mesh cover with it installed in place. So in the end there are three 200mm fans in the front and two 140mm fans and one 120mm fan at the back. I don't have high performance PC hardware to test it with. This is only a GTX 1080 and Ryzen 5 2600. This is with a stock AMD CPU cooler, and the ambient temperature was around 18 degrees Celsius. But you can see after running Prime 95 and Firmark for an hour and a half, the CPU temperature was only 45 degrees Celsius and the GPU was 62 degrees Celsius, and it held stable at this temperature for the last half hour of the test. And as you can see, the CPU and case fans are only running at 33% and the GPU fan is 53%, and that helps to reduce the noise from the fans quite a bit. In the end it came out okay. I'm still not sure if I'm gonna use it because although you can't see it on the video that well, there are slight differences in the paint in the front and a few places around the case because I had a small accident and I dropped my water level on the case while it was lying on the bench, so there's also a few spots where I had to patch it up. Thanks for watching and see you next time.